before we get started, let me start by saying this is what's in those bottles of chicken bouillon granules. Now, you see the very first ingredient, salt. So that means there's just more salt in there than anything. And then you also see, I mean, there's MSG, there's all the bad stuff in there. Now, for our chicken bouillon, it's just beautiful, beautiful, fresh, natural ingredients. And I promise you, this isn't going to take you all day to make or days to make. You're going to have this done in 35, maybe 40 minutes. So let's get started. Now, we don't need this much chicken. This was a pack of chicken I got, and under $7 for all of this. But what I want to show you, in case you ever get the legs and the thighs attached, how to separate them easily. I'm trying to see if I can find one that has a good line that you can see. Here we go. So what you want to do is, you see that fat line right there that separates the drumstick from the thigh. And you just want to put your knife on the drumstick side of that fat line and then cut straight through. And you can see you go straight through. And maybe sharpen your knife. So there's an easy way if you buy those, if you get a good deal on packs of thighs and legs combined and you want to cut them up for dinner. That's just how you do it. Super simple. We'll do one more. So you see our line there. So I'm just going to go to the drum side of that fat line, and once I cut down, straight through, just like that. All right, so now let's get on with making this bouillon. So in my pot over here, I'm going to do, I really only want 3 pieces of chicken. So I think I'm going to go with 2 of my drumsticks. Oh, you know what? I haven't. I'm going to go with all of that. But you only need about 3 pieces of chicken. You can do 3 thighs. You can do 3 drumsticks, whatever. We're going to do all that in there. This, I'm going to save for our dinner tonight. And now into that, I'm going to add 2 cups of water. I'm going to sit this over here. I'm going to let this come to a boil, and then I'm going to let it simmer while we get our vegetables ready to go. So I'm going to do 4 or 5 cloves of garlic, and I want to get those smashed first so that we can get that, oh, goodness unleashed from those, all that Allison in there. So I'm going to just give those a smash, big rough chop, because this is all going to get pureed, so we're not looking for specific size here. I just want to get that going first. So I'm going to do a cup each of carrots and celery. So Sue, are you watching? These are the carrots we found ourselves both looking at the grocery store the other day. And they're not the greatest. They are a little soft. But for something like this, it's okay. They're going to be just fine. So if that's all you can find, if your carrots aren't the crispiest, for something like this, don't worry about it. Now I have come to a boil over here, and I just want to pop my top on here and let that cook. Did you hear that? Billy's listening to me. He's watching one of my videos. And just let that simmer for at least 10 minutes. Now, parsnips. You don't have to have parsnips, but I will tell you, in here, parsnips add such a depth of flavor that you'll be sad if you don't. And again, I'm just going to do this whole thing, but I'm looking for like a cup of parsnips. And now I'm going to do leek. I'm going to do like a half an onion, and I'm going to do the white part of leek. Don't have the leeks, do a whole onion. And then next I'm going to do a good like 2 tablespoons of some fresh parsley. I'm just going to pick those leaves off of the stems, give them a rough chop. And then also a few sprigs of thyme. And because we're going to puree all of this, I don't want the stems in there. So Phyllis, can you tell us rocking? The shrimp boat just went by. So shrimping is suspended at 5 o'clock on Fridays, and then it starts back up at like 5 o'clock on Sunday. So the shrimp boats are heading to the shrimping field, and they always send us a good rock. So after about 10 minutes, I'm going to remove my chicken And then I'm going to strain off this liquid. I want to keep all of this. So I'm going to crank this heat back up. And that we're going to use, don't get rid of that. I'm going to do about a tablespoon of avocado oil. And then all of our veggies, in we go. And we're going to saute these minutes. We just want them to really soften up. And I'll put the lid on there. And then I'm going to let this cool down enough to touch it. And I'm going to cut that meat off the bone. So here's what I'm doing. I'm removing the meat. And I'm taking the skin off. I don't want the skin anymore. Again, we're going to puree this. And I don't want the skin pureed up in there. I just want the meat. And the bone, we're not going to discard yet. We're going to keep it for just a little bit longer. All right, so we've got our vegetables nice and soft. We're going to add all of this back in. Now, I am adding the bones back in because I want them to keep cooking in there because we're getting so much nutrients from that. In this pot, I'm going to add the water that we cooked that chicken in. And that's all the water we're going to add. I am going to add a half of a teaspoon of kosher salt, a big heaping one. And that's all the salt that I'm putting in there. And I'm going to add some turmeric because I kind of like to sneak turmeric in everywhere that I can. You know, because turmeric helps us fight free radicals. Now, the reason they put that two different kinds of dyes in that bouillon is because they want the yellow color. Honestly, I'm not worried if mine has yellow color, but this is going to give you that nice yellow color. And it's going to be really good for you. So I'm going to put that in there. And pop my lid on. 20 minutes. Simmer. And then we'll be back. So my timer is just about to go off. I'm turning my heat off. And I'm just going to let this sit and cool down before we puree it. And in the meantime, I will remove those bones from there. So obviously your food processor or your blender will work. I'm going to use my immersion blender and make sure you take those bones out. I've got my bones removed and we're just going to puree it. So you know when I make my stocks, I do not put salt in them. But this is like a flavor cube, if you will, replacing those bouillon cubes. So you do want some salt here. We do want to enhance the flavor with some salt. We just don't want the first ingredient to be salt. So I'm going to taste, and I might add a little more kosher salt. And yeah, I think I will. And I'll probably do another half a teaspoon. And that gives us only 1 teaspoon of salt for this whole batch. Now don't be tempted to add water. You don't want a lot of water here. What you want here is a concentration of chicken and vegetables and not a lot of water. So don't be tempted to add any water. Try to work with the water that remains. And now you want this as pureed as you can get it. You really want this to be like baby food. Now for me, these containers hold 2 tablespoons. So each of these little cubes is going to be 2 tablespoons. And you see how much this made. It wasn't a whole lot of ingredients, but this is going to make a lot of bouillon cubes. So let this cool completely. Don't pop this in the freezer while it's hot. Let this cool completely. Put it in your freezer. All right, now these are perfect to use for your rices, your grains. I love to cook my rice with these. If you're cooking potatoes, if you're cooking pasta, for your gravy, casseroles, anything you would like to add a burst of concentrated, beautiful, healthy flavor to without adding MSG, colors, salt, all of the bad stuff, just all of the good stuff. Thank y'all. Thanks for being here. See you later. Bye.